we'll ask each of us to introduce ourselves. Josh, I'll ask to start with you.
Of course. My name is Josh Mesout. I'm Chief Innovation Officer of Civo. I've had the pleasure of being here since Civo first started offering GPUs and AI-based technology. Historically, I've been a contributor to technologies such as PyTorch, and I've mostly specialized my career in building things like precision medicine diagnostics using deep learning.
Hey, first of all, thanks to Civo. Thanks, Simon. It was a wonderful opportunity, and definitely excited to see the crowd with a lot of youngsters who are building the innovation mindset and innovation for India. Thanks for everyone. Yeah, my name is Murthy Chitlur. We represent Simplify Innovations Private Limited based out of Bangalore, and we are a head office registered in Singapore. So I am a vice president heading the delivery and innovation. We work on blockchain and AI. Thank you.
Hello everyone, good morning. It's great to be here. A lot of energy, a lot of young energy to be very honest. My name is Chirotpal. You can call me CP. I'm the founder of Sarthi AI Research Private Limited. We're trying to solve a problem of integrated data availability for the next generation of AI systems. And we're based out of Bangalore. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. I'm Anjali Batra. I'm representing OpsMix. I'm working as Director Artificial Intelligence with them. So these days I'm keeping myself busy with working on something called security software optimization system. So we are trying to make security as part of your day-to-day routine. And we are calling it AI Guardian for now. So in case anybody is interested, please talk. Thank you.
Thank you. So big round of applause to our panelists. We always appreciate people coming up and sharing their views and their opinion. And Murthy, I particularly thank you because I asked him about 2 minutes ago. Okay? So really appreciate you taking a space with us. So Josh, I'm going to start by asking everyone a quick question. But Josh, if you would be kind enough to start. This year, 2025, we've seen an explosion of both open source and closed source models. And I think it was just last week, there was another open source model, the Kimi K2 beat ChatGPT 5.1. I mean, we all think ChatGPT is the kind of lodestar, but actually it's regularly beaten. So when is it going to be the case that the open source models are going to overtake the closed source models?
I think what we're really seeing, and especially in the Indian market, is parity now between open source and closed source. Over the last 2 years, we've seen big US models take the title. Actually, very recently, I think there's a lot of evidence about models like Kimi coming out of China being able to beat those benchmarks. I think what I'm really, really excited for is actually the whole wave of models coming out of India, and actually India's role in open source. And the impact of that, I think, will be similar to how, when Linux came, an open source operating system to disrupt the way we built infrastructure. I think these open source models will do so in a very similar way.
Great. CP, what do you think? What's your opinion?
For me at Sarthi AI, we've already seen open source doing much better than closed source. That was very interesting. In fact, not only about open source, but it is also about, there is a thinking that, the larger the model is, the better it's going to perform. Mm-hmm. But we have seen contrary, right? To be very honest, I've seen Llama 3.1 70 billion solving all our problems, more or less. And as we are trying to integrate more closed source models or bigger models, we didn't see that performance, right? So it was already there. But whether open source is going to take over for closed source, it's a debatable topic. I think, given the context and the training data limitation, I think we'll eventually see a parity between both open source and closed source. And it will eventually depend on companies whether they want to go with open source if they want to the safety part of it or the no headache. Yeah. And some other might decide that they want to have a complete control over it, then they can go with it. But definitely open source is the future, I can see. But that doesn't mean closed source, in my opinion, is going to completely, get wiped out. Both will be there.
Great. Josh, maybe you can help remind me the statistics. We launched our Llama 4.1 model in April this year.
Must have been around then.
Around that time. And if I remember, you showed a chart up on the screen that showed the comparative speed power of the different models. And Llama 4.1 was 19.3? if I remember.
About that, yeah.
And yet the latest model that we're using is
It's up to 60% now.
so over 60%. I think I know the statistic better than you. The statistic was 93.4 versus the closed source model, which is 94.3.
Yes.
So 93.4, the open source model, closed source was 94.3. Almost no difference. Yeah?
Yeah, completely agree. And I think almost came out of nowhere to be coming through. So I think a lot of these models aren't done yet. We'll see more progress in the next few weeks and months that come along. And I think these benchmarks are actually becoming a really honest way for consumers to go and compare open source versus closed source models.
Great, thank you. Anjali, have you got some thoughts?
I think I'll go with closed models, but it also depends on the kind of use case that you're dealing with. And especially when you come to security, I feel that your guardrails have to be really, really high if you're completely going with the open source models.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with closed source models.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And particularly when it comes to security,
Yeah.
you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Murthy, have you got an opinion? 2026, which one's going to be the leader?
I particularly cannot pinpoint the model over here. I would actually concur over here. Like the market is like varying between open source and the other applications, and so it basically depends upon the use cases here. And with respect to performance, I don't have any question because definitely the infrastructure is really equipped and the technology is getting developed for the performance issues. So where there is a more of privacy required, enterprise and all, then obviously depending upon the finance and banking sectors. And for general things, if you go by the share, I would say open source is going to lead the market, but definitely not tomorrow. Gradually, that is how it would be. So we, being an innovative company, we work across multiple open sources, and depending on the use case, we choose which one is better, performance, or in terms of the time consuming and the memory consumptions, and multiple things like this.
Great, thank you.
And like industry leaders like OpenAI, creating those open source models, GPT OSS, we just saw in Relax AI. And it also tells you the direction that the industry thinks the whole thing is going towards, because open source has to be there. Otherwise, because open source makes you innovate. It helps you with your R&D. It helps you with, quick, use case validation and whatnot. So it is definitely there.
So I am very lucky. I think I've got the best job in the world. This year I've done 53 international flights. I fly North America, Europe, Africa, and of course Asia, and Bangalore 8 times this year. And I've been to AI conferences around the world. I've been to 3 AI conferences in India. One in Bangalore, one in Pune, one in Mumbai. And I'm always amazed that Indians are trying to say we're the powerhouse, as though trying to convince we are. And I'm going, you are. You are the powerhouse. There is more skill in India than I have seen in North America, in Europe. You need to be more confident, absolutely more confident. So tell me, what are the use cases, CP, in India for AI? What do you think the use cases will be over the next year that we'll see?
I mean, there are a lot of use cases, definitely, right? But see, I mean, for an enterprise or even for a startup or for SMB, anybody who is trying to adopt AI, I think they should start slow, right? Start with simple implementation. When I say simple implementation, I do not mean a small use case, right? I'll take an example here, right? I mean, see, we talk about AI and we directly think about an LLM. But that's just one part of AI. There is a lot to it, right? Vector database, vector space is one part of it. Embeddings are one part of it. A simple example, but a complicated use case, if I may say, is something like anomaly detection, right? Previously, a lot of prediction models has to be there, but still you cannot get it right. But today, we might think, okay, LLM is going to solve it for us. But integrating LLM, there's a cost and everything. But you don't even know that. You don't even need LLM, to be very honest, right? So Sarthi AI, we work with vector databases. So what I understood is, if you put data into a vector space or a vector database, whatever you might call it, data will automatically start clustering towards a particular point. Similar types of data will start clustering. Now, if you, for example, in a financial sector, say there is a transaction, right? So for a user, there are transactions. All those transactions will start becoming a cone because they are more or less in the same direction. If suddenly you see a new transaction coming into picture and that is deviating from that cone itself, you can just do it by similarity search, right? No need of LLM. You directly know, okay, there is a problem, there is an anomaly in the data. Now it depends on your use case, how much threshold you want to keep. So the point I'm trying to make here is there is a lot of use case that you can think of. I think it's better to start small, but have your use case better, understand the whole space of AI, not only LLM, but vector space and others, and accordingly take a use case and go about it.
Start small, innovate fast. Absolutely. Use cases that you particularly excited about?
I believe that, what he's expressed just now was kind of holding true till last year when generative AI has not made its impact. But right now, the race is going at a different level altogether, and we have to innovate very faster if we want to be in the market for sure. So generative AI actually helps you in picking up that space, and I'm not denying, I was a big proponent of saying that not every case is a LLM case. It is machine learning can also solve it. Simpler the better. But right now, the kind of use cases that we have started seeing into the market, which probably nobody is even thinking about it. It brings that pace and things into the system. And once you have the proof of concept using the LLMs, then probably you can go back to your predictive analytics or deep learning models and take charge there to be more explainable and to be more completely sure about what you're proposing. But generative LLMs and all have actually bring in a lot of pace into the system, and I think right now no enterprise, even for the smallest of the use case, I was just working with a friend some time back, and it's a smallest use case where they are sending their marketing people to the customers just to create their own flow charts. What they're proposing to the customer, they want to use LLM. So it's that simpler use case, but that gives them a pace. So they do not have to think about anything, but LLM can actually come to rescue, give the recording to the system that, this is what we have promised and this is the solution. So that is the kind of, expectation from the engineering people, that the solution has to come within a week, 10 days. With the rest of the things, it will be very, very difficult. So though we can say the solution still can be found out somewhere else and we can start small, but we cannot ignore generative AI world now.
I think that was a really great answer, a very, very good answer. But yeah, one of the things I absolutely take away from there is you're right, it's not all about LLMs. ML is just as important in so many use cases. Now, Josh, my question was about use cases in India. I don't know that you're an expert in that, but maybe you can just share with us in your wider view that you've seen. What are the exciting use cases you've seen?
Yeah, I love working with enterprises who grab a hold of these AI technologies and always come across some really clever ideas. So there's a few that don't belong to me, belong to my customers that they do on the Relax platform that I think are really clever. And one of them is actually you just take your day's calendar of meetings and you send that day's calendar to your deep research endpoint. And it will go away and look at all your meetings. It will do all the prep you need for those meetings, put together a prep plan for each of them. And what I particularly like is if you've got a call with an external person, you can say, go look at that person's LinkedIn. Find out what they're interested in. Help me understand what I need to understand for that meeting. And these are all things you can do normally. But I think as we start to get to the world where AI solves problems, it's the little things as much as the big things. When you're getting together a sales preparation pitch or you're putting together a strategy or trying to understand an investment kind of conversation, and AI can really add context that you can bring into that. The other one that I really, really think is quite promising now is also automated coding or vibe coding. I see huge value being generated out of that, and I think India is actually a market where that's working out really, really well, and we're seeing startups take that en masse.
Thank you. Murthy.
Yeah, my favorite topic. So how much time do we have? Because I will be on and on this one. I would like to limit myself. Yeah. So there is no one use case which we can talk about which is famous in India, because India is such a huge, wide open market. Every possible use cases we do have a scope. But only thing we have to evaluate is whether definitely does this require a normal AI is enough or an agentic AI is required. So starting from the individuals who is working on their own laptops, and AI they can build their own use cases for their own routine jobs and all. That is with a simple AI use case until the complex multi-agentic AI use cases working in the banks, financial institutions, enterprises. It can be across. I mean, very simple one where everyone can start is from their customer service and managing the service tickets. So we have, obviously, I mean, I can very positively talk about this because we have product across every wing possible. Yeah. Maybe on the customer service, maybe on the compliance and regulatory management, maybe on the trade finance aspects, maybe on the enterprise GPTs fitting into any of their domains required. So any use case you talk about, because we are evolving, we are talking and companies are already piloting. So within next 1 to 2 years, definitely every company will have not only the regular AIs, but they'll be getting into the agentic or multi-agent AIs.
Absolutely. CP.
I mean, I think everyone talked about it. I think, see, applications of AI in India, even the government uses it, right? Policymakers are using it, economists are using it. And it's not about India, it's all across the world, right? In India specifically, you can say the farmers are using it. There are companies who are working with agentic AI systems to benefit the farmers in one way or the other, right? And I see logistics, supply chain, some of the things that India struggles with at this point in time will definitely get benefited through AI, not specifically talking in terms of agentic AI or Gen AI or LLM, but AI as a whole, because there is a lot to it, I think. Yeah. There is a lot that India can gain from, in terms of logistics.
There really are just so many use cases. I saw a lovely one in India last week. I know there's some friends in the audience from Height SS. I don't know if they're here. Height SS. They gave me a great demo yesterday of financial trading in India using AI. Really very, very powerful. So lots of positivity. It undoubtedly will create a lot of jobs. There's got to be some concerns that there might be jobs that are lost as well. We're going to ask some questions, allow the audience to ask some questions of us, but maybe I could ask a quick question of everyone here. Who does vibe coding at the moment? Okay, almost everyone has put their hands up there. So, but there's some jobs that can be very hard to automate. A plumber, a guy mending the auto, a mechanic, an electrician. But there may be a time when that becomes robots, can interface with AI and actually start doing some of that work. Do you think that's likely? Is that in our lifetime, Josh?
I think that's the next big revolution, is where these AI models can take a physical form and start to serve in humanity. And Steve Wozniak has this amazing quote that I always remember, which is, AI singularity happens when an AI knocks on my door, comes in, makes me a cup of coffee and brings it to my desk because it knew I wanted one. And it's that level of kind of servience. But what I think is really interesting is, particularly in India, you've got a huge hardware industry, huge robotics industry, and actually that will be the next frontier to be able to unlock these use cases, like having an AI cook food for you, having an AI fix a mechanical issue, and actually that will open the next opportunities for value inside the economy, because you could have robots building robots.
I think we will see that. Yeah, CP.
See, I think robotics is something that doesn't get that much of limelight in today's world, but there are a lot of companies who are working and has improved leaps and bounds in terms of the physical part of the robot, right? Boston Dynamics comes to mind, and there are so many other companies like that. When it comes to the software, right, there are, I think, 3 things I would look forward to before I can say yes, robots can start doing things. One would be the advancement in terms of small language models. Because you have to have your language models on an edge computing, right, inside that small tiny head of a robot. So small language models is something. The other most crucial part is memory management. Right? So we at Sarthi Air are working day and night and figuring out the memory part of it. But I think memory management is one of the most important things as far as robots go. Right? You cannot have the robot forget something. The other thing which I'm not sure if it exists today, but I feel is a necessity in the future in terms of robotics, is a protocol for hybrid inferencing. So what do I mean by that is there is a small language model at edge and there is a large language model at cloud. And there has to be a hybrid inferencing between the two, because you cannot expect the robot to have all the information at a small level, but you do need a large language model at a cloud or at another system to give you all the information. So I think these three things specifically, small language model, I already know in India, I was talking to a CEO, Kamlakar from SandLogic, they are working on it, edge computing LLMs. Memory management, well, we are working on it. But the other part is something that I will look forward to the community to drive, I guess. And then we would be very comfortable using robots in our everyday life, I think.
Great. Murthy, is robotics and AI going to solve the Bangalore traffic problem?
Yeah.
Are they going to recognize white lines in the road?
No, partly yes. I wouldn't say 100% because a lot of civic sense, lot of infra from the government is also required. So, but with respect to AI, is it going to help and ease? Yes, it definitely, and of course they have already, it's been under pilot also. So, is AI going to help us? Simple answer, yes, it is going to. So, and initial part of the discussion, what you mentioned about the jobs, robots, and all those things, right? So, I don't think anyone has to be concerned or scared about this. The way we have seen the world getting evolved, from the time of the Industrial Revolution also, always this scare has been always there. Fear is always been there. Only thing is skill up. That's it. Just keep on skilling up and make sure that you are on the multi-tech levels or multi-task levels, so no one can replace you. As we know, the mundane jobs will be done by AI or robots, but still the decision making is we. AI at this point of time or in the near future can't be replaced. There are a lot of things only where we can do, so we can just go ahead with that. So coming to the specifics of the where AI will take over, things like that and all, yes, it is definitely going to take over a lot of things. But as I mentioned to you, we need to be upskilled and we have to be in a place where we have to govern that with the proper guardrails, security. So these are certain things where everyone can look into of where exactly they can upskill themselves, what is required. Just look 2 steps ahead and get evolved.
Great. Yeah. Anjali, have you got a view on robotics, AI?
I think everybody who's working here in generative AI has the concept of human in the loop, right? So I believe in robotics also. They can do monotonous, repetitive tasks, but having to take decision, humans will always be required. They can keep doing something which is to be done every day, every hour, but to take a decision to bring in innovation, humans will always be there. They're not going to take over.
Yeah. I think that's true, but we also all forget how fast technology comes towards us. So we tend to think here and go, it's not likely. We forget to look here, where it's very likely. Yeah. So, in the next year, 2 years, maybe not. 5 years, 10 years, almost certainly, in my view. Yeah. Now, Gartner. We all know who Gartner is. There's a big conference in Cochin today from Gartner. They have said this year there is more spend in India on AI than France, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. That's how much money is being spent in India each year. Now, I guess my question here is, do we have a view to, is that spend going to benefit India's and cloud sovereignty in India? Is that going to start seeing Indian LLM models in India? So, Josh, thoughts?
I think there's like an amazing opportunity that's unique to India, where actually you guys could have data centers that you own and operate and build. You could have models that you own and operate and build, and you could actually serve them across. And there's an opportunity here for an entire supply chain that comes through. I guess it's also important, to make sure that money's, going to, a great example like companies like Civo, who are, native Indian companies helping build that, where the investment is actually a strategic investment that can benefit the whole of India. And I think it's just making sure that international investment lands in the right places. And the way you do that is you listen to the India market and you listen to what it needs and you make sure that you're responding to those needs.
See, Indian market is very competitive market, right? And the world sees that, right? And that's why you see a lot of companies, almost all the companies, right, are investing in India. They are trying to promote their products and services in India because they see the market to be so large at the end of the day. When we talk about investment and in terms of cloud in India and cloud sovereignty, as I said, it's a competitive market. So it's not only just about the sovereignty part, because a lot of people are going to talk about sovereignty, right? With sovereignty, you also have to provide performance. I'll take a small example. And Civo plays a very pivotal and very interesting role here because it's my personal experience. So while deploying our vector database, right, we wanted a faster system, right? So basically NVMe storage, block storage is what we require. Now a lot of other cloud providers will put a price or a limit to the IO speed, right? Which is not what we want. At the end of the day, Civo makes it easier, right? And that's why we moved to Civo. Okay, this is where our application performs the best, then why not? These are the type of things in terms of a competitive market where a company has to look at and provide the solution in that direction so that the adaptability increases. Otherwise, adaptability is very difficult here, right? So I think, these things are important.
Murthy?
No, on this point, I think they have covered much.
Okay.
So there's nothing new to add.
I think they have covered it well.
Good, so good answers. We kind of started our conversation here about open source and closed source. I guess I kind of go back to not the same question, but the same topic is, with all these investments coming into India, what do we need to do to make sure that the Indian sovereign AI becomes an open source model for the benefit of India? What do we need to do here? CP?
There has to be incentives, while you work for open source, there has to be incentives to it. I think that's one of the biggest thing, right? See, open sourcing something, this excites you. Everyone wants to do it, but without the right incentives, I think people are a bit scared, right? At the end of the day, right? For India, as far as the open source market is concerned, I think A is incentives. B, you need to focus on the research part of it, academicians, right? Because research comes from there. Without having a base in research, it's very difficult to build open source, right? You will always try and fetch from here and there, but you have to have your own research. So academicians has to be in the focus in terms of investments. And to be very honest, right, so in India there is a lot of talk about pedigree. So even in terms of academicians or where the money goes, you look at the pedigree. Is the person from IIT? Is the person from NIT and all that? I think when we talk about open source, we really need to talk about open source. It has to be open across board, whether you have a pedigree or not. Just to close it, I would say capability has to be kept on top as compared to pedigree. And that's how we're going to achieve open source in India.
Josh, what experience have you seen?
I think one of the most amazing things you have in India is also like a really strong academic university framework. And actually I think one of the things I always see is actually like guest lecturers moving across from not just India's universities, but US universities and back and forth. I think if you've got a huge community of people here right now training open source models, it'd be amazing to see them kind of do a visiting professorship at India universities and start to really get that ingrained across the nation. That's a thing that I think that the US kind of missed a trick on, was actually being able to share a lot of that knowledge. And I think definitely to the point that was just mentioned there, someone's listening, is actually being able to use the existing infrastructure, the education around that to do so.
Our panelists are looking above thinking, is the ceiling about to collapse?
I guess I resonate with your point, and probably picking up these college graduates from the very beginning rather than only concentrating on enterprises probably will help you scale up things, because right now when you go to universities and talk to these students, they are doing much more than what the industry is actually doing. They are entrepreneurs from the first year of their graduation. They talk business. They're already doing research projects. So I think catching them young probably can, have a scale up there. Yeah. Thank you.
Murthy, last comment at all?
Just to continue whatever they told, yes, it is the same stream what we have. One is, yes, a strong foundation is already been there, is already there. Institutions, then where exactly there are a lot of collaborations happening with enterprises, government, organizations, and the students and professors, and collaboration with the outside world as well. And between those two, we have is the huge revolution of startups. That is the one which I would like to bring over here. So that is going to really contribute and accelerate whatever we are trying to do.
Great, thank you. So we've got some real experts, some big opinions here. I think I've got some colleagues with microphones. Are there some questions in the audience? Please, if you just introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Surbhi and I'm an EdTech founder. My question is that, great discussion by the way, about the opportunities in AI. I think we rarely talk about the challenges and the impact it's actually having on us humans in the workforce. So just from my personal experience and what I've read, given that vibe coding you've spoken about, if an average developer is just going to use a lot of ChatGPT for coding, is it affecting their ability to problem solve independently and be responsible developers? Because a lot of the code that ChatGPT actually throws at us is not production ready, and the quality sometimes can affect the product development severely. Or even in HR nowadays with hiring, you see thousands and thousands of resumes just being piled up and submitted. Perfect. But when you meet that person in reality, it's a massive disappointment. So in terms of the cost and the problems that people are facing as a result of everything seeming perfect, is it affecting our ability to be responsible and creative humanists, which is what we are as people? And are we really considering that as a part of the discussion to balance off the scale when we are really talking about the opportunity here?
Great question. Thank you very much. So Josh, do not answer this by saying you should be coding in relax. Okay? That's not the right answer.
No. So I think actually there's some really, really good points there. And actually I think it's, as AI is coming out, it's showing what value us as humans have that can't be replaced. And actually there are some things that humans have that you're never going to see in a computational model or an algorithm, and that's things like intuition. It's things like gut feeling. It's like the sense when someone walks in a room. I think those things will never have a computational replacement for. I mean, I saw an analogy from Andrews and Horowitz recently where they brought up some news articles about how the invention of cars was going to remove the need for trainers because no one was ever going to run anywhere again. And obviously we know that that's not quite true. I think making predictions like this far out are very difficult, but remembering the human values that we can do and making sure that we understand that an AI model is never going to have the same level of empathy as human. An AI model is never going to have an intuition about an outcome or be on the edge of its seat about an outcome. So I think that would be the piece I'd really cement.
CP, you wanted to answer first.
No. Yes and no, both. I think it's a shift in the mindset, right? See, you have to learn how to code, first of all. You should know what a system design is at the end of the day. You need to look at AI as an assistant rather than someone who is solving your problem right away. As she's talked about human in the loop, I think that's very, very important. You have to look at it as an assistant, someone who can get you jobs done, but do not 100% rely on it, right? Educate yourself on all the nitty-gritties. That's part of the education part of it. The other part where I think you talked about the resumes, and how do you get to a deterministic system, if I may, right? It's so much non-determinism right now. I really emphasize on system design, right? So you have an AI that's good, it's conversational, right? And based upon the model you choose, it will depend on how much intelligence or knowledge it actually has. Also, it depends during inference time, what is the probability metric, right? What data is going to fetch? We do not know that. So it's very, very important to have our system designed in such a way that we evaluate, we have an observability parameter, right? To understand what's going on. That is the only way I feel, because see, at the end of the day, there is a black box there, right? We do not know what it's going to say. So we have to be able to evaluate it, what it's going to say, maybe look through once or twice, and then finally get to the production system. So focus on system design if you need more determinism.
Thank you. It's such an important question. we've got to have AI working in a world that we want to live in. Yeah, so important. I'm not going to ask everyone to answer every question because I'd like to ask several questions. I know there's a chap through here, if we could. Quick questions, quick answers, and we're going to try and go through quite a number here.
Good morning, all. Firstly, thanks so much for this great discussion, really helpful. So we started with this good thing, like India is really having an impact in the AI space, and but there are two kinds of India, right? One that is sitting inside this room, and one that is like tier 3 and tier 4 cities. So not particularly the entire country at a user level, but let's talk at a B2B level. Currently, AI is impacting, I would say, only like 5 to 10% of businesses, or probably even less. The main businesses that are sitting in Chickpeats or Mumbai markets or Delhi markets, how would they be actually using AI to kind of, ease off there? Because in those markets, you still have those bills coming in written in small chits. And the accounts remembered, hey, I have to pay this to this. So how will AI impact? And would love to hear your thoughts as to what the breakthrough will in that space will be, because that's a chunk of Indian economy.
So we're all talking about AI, but less than 10% of people are actually using it.
It's less than 10%.
Absolutely. Murthy, will you help answer the question for us?
Yeah, definitely and absolutely a very good question. Especially catering to the economies and countries like India or similar countries. Is it directly going to help them, or they can directly use the AI? No, definitely not. As you already you answered on your own in your question itself. So, but how it is going to benefit them and in the way is like whatever the systems they are going to use, where they are being part of the other applications, where they become the consumer for certain other applications. So that is where they are going to get benefited. Very simple use case, may not be exact match, I would say, is today where the quick loans are possible, right? So I am a small vendor and I don't have to go to the bank or anywhere, and basically I just open my phone and instantly my loan is sanctioned. So this is how it's going to benefit that person who really want an instant loan. Very simple example I can say. So this is how everyone will be definitely benefited. Few of them may be impacted, but there will be other ways where that can be compensated. So don't want to get too deep into that. Yeah.
I think my view is it will impact everything, every part of the society, no doubt about it. Eventually, it will take time. What happens is whenever there is a hype, everyone wants to build something around it. And you build something that you know about it. And that's why we see so many coding assistants, because coders know it, right? But as the hype is settling down, the dust is settling down, I think people are realizing, and they will look at use cases. Again, the same thing, right? It is an assistant. It can help solve some of your problem, not all of your problem at the end of the day. And focus on system design to solve complex problems. And it will definitely solve most of India's problem. I can see that. India is very fast as adapting. So we will definitely do that.
Great. Next question, if we may.
See, there are a lot of reports that talk about AI failing in production, and me myself being a global consultant, I've seen. So I would want to understand from each one of you an example where your AI use case would have failed and your learnings from that.
Can you repeat the question?
I said there are a lot of research where the number of AI use cases in production are failing, and that's a very significant percentage depending on whom you're reading. And I have also seen that with my personal experience being a global consultant for a lot of companies. So I want to understand from each one of you an example of why your AI use case would have failed in production and your learnings from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go first if you like. I think putting use cases into production with AI is kind of like two components. It's the model, and you can use a model provider to help move that quicker. And in those situations, a production deployment is a lot easier. Most people who've been through this loop have tried to do it all themselves, and actually being a master of everything in AI is a really complex thing. We talk about like the need for AI unicorns and a really wide skill set across a number of domains. And I think using, a managed provider for your AI model is a really good solution. I think the other half of that as well, and I mentioned it a bit this morning in the keynote, is making sure you've got an AI-ready cloud. And actually the components that you use behind that, when you're building that application layer for agents, are speaking the modern language that agents need to speak. I think one of the biggest and easiest to state challenges is actually bottlenecks can be the thing that shut down a project at production, and spotting them as early as possible is what I recommend people to do.
Yeah, I just want to give an example. Like a few months back, I have been a speaker in one of the forums. I got a chance to speak to one of the CEO of the largest production company in Karnataka itself, and their technology company also. So it was just a regular brainstorming, and some of the cases where we were concurring each other was, one is the better plant management in production, and especially one use case I can say is where there are a lot of machines, where you collect a lot of data from the machines, right? So one is for the machine maintenance, one is for the anomalies, what we detect. So well ahead, you can predict the life of the machine and any issues, repairs, what machine can come through, wherein you can really take the maintenance ahead of time, and can save a lot. And that is going to improve your production timings, even as exactly discussed with them. So I am not into the manufacturing, but when we innovate the products, we get into all the domains. So this is one. Second one is obviously the, depending upon the, especially specifically on the one of the other company I was discussing with respect to the largest one of the they have hundreds of CNC machines. So where so much data is coming through, and how to calibrate the machines and how to use the data for the better improvements. So these are the practical use cases which are directly in research right now, and some of the companies are already have implemented.
Great, thank you. We're going to take two more questions. So is the one from the back somewhere?
Hi.
Is there
I already have the mic, sir.
Thank you.
Is it okay? Hi, guys.
You own the microphone. It's mine.
I held on to it just to ask the question. Great session, amazing experience. My name is Shobit. I work as an organizational coach and help organizations find better solutions as people. One of the biggest challenges that we are seeing, a lot of research and studies that has happened where innovation is actually getting driven by AI, not being assisted by AI. Especially by the youngsters, most of the seats are filled by them today. We are not asking solutions, we are asking problems we can solve. And that is actually deprivating organizations from actually those problem-solving conversations that needs to happen, or that coaching that needs to happen internally, the grooming that is needed, only when a problem is identified by yourself, but not by an AI. What can I solve today? There are studies that say that kids, I will not use that word kids, young adults who are just joining the organization say that 60% of them feel more comfortable talking about their workplace anxiety with ChatGPT rather than their managers. Just want to know your thoughts about that.
Great.
So I'll take that question from you. I think you very correctly said that we are trying to ask questions from the ChatGPT that, what is the problem that should be solving, right? And probably the young adults, they've just entered the, this market. So they're just trying to do everything at a fast pace. But we really need to understand that's where subject matter experts who have given, years and years together to the industry to work on certain division of the, market. So that's why when we say that data science or artificial intelligence has made its thing into the market, they're just engineering principle at the end of the day, and we all need to understand that. We all need to respect the subject matter expertise and try to figure out with them that what is the problem that they have been solving years after years, and then try to use artificial intelligence or ChatGPTs or LLMs to get the solution a little faster, but keeping your engineering principles intact. It's very, very important. If your requirement itself is coming from ChatGPT, then you're probably building a product which is already in the market. Or if not, then probably will be better and earlier than the market than you can even think of. So that's a very bad thing to do, and that's why I think most of the AI startups are getting closed at a very fast pace, right? So that's an engineering principle, and possibly everybody has to take a thought about it before they are creating a POC on the basis of what ChatGPT is giving to you to solve, right?
Great. Anyone else a quick response?
Yeah, because I would like to answer this because day in, day out, I keep facing these issues. So very simple, as he already mentioned, this is a question of education, how we train the mindset of the students in institutions and engineers or innovators who are joining the companies. So we have to develop a mindset wherein use AI as your assistant rather than becoming an assistant to the AI. Okay, so that is a mindset. But on the contradiction to this, I do understand where the things are coming from because of the fast pace. Everything has to be speed. Everything need to happen at the flick of a button. So even the management pressurizes the teams. Okay, I want this solution. So there is no other option. The engineers definitely go and resort to what AI is doing rather than using their brains. So it's about education and training, and there should be a balance between the innovation and the sales or market from the way how we are tuning the engineers.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Hey everyone, my name is Megha and I have just started my career as a software engineer with GE Healthcare a few months back. So this question might be on the behalf of all the freshers who are starting their careers or they have started the careers this year. So if you were here in 2025 as a fresher, I would like to ask how would you structure your first 2 years of your career to stay relevant in the field of AI and to stay valuable and stand out of a very big crowd, like given the condition in India, there are so many freshers that are graduating every year and things are very competitive. The job market is also very brutal. So how would you suggest to structure the first few years of our career to stay relevant?
Quick answers. It's lunchtime.
Stay relevant. I mean, the AI is changing every second of the day. You need to keep a tap on it. And by tap on it doesn't mean that you have to watch a YouTube video and good to go. Use it, have a practical use case, write some code, get an understanding. And that is the only way to stay updated. I mean, we used to do it in our early days when there was no AI. And even with AI, things will move fast, but I think you have to move faster.
I think learn to unlearn.
Things is,
Sorry, I did not realize. I said learn to unlearn. That's very important because you guys have learned things at a very fast pace and are at the periphery. Take the time out of your gadgets, no phone, nothing, and say, okay, I'm gonna code something today. Just pick up a small problem. Because what we are facing in the industry right now, even if you're asking some basic questions about data structures, it's gone. So just spend that time and give that thought that I will solve it myself. There is no hurry. There's no rat race. Everybody has its own journey, right? So just be relevant. Very correctly said.
Very nice, considered answer. Thank you.